touching because it is a touchy situation for Donald Trump. He certainly needs to get all of the states that Mitt Romney won in 2012, and that includes the state that's leaning blue right now, North Carolina. It is do or die for him in the Tar Heel states. And if we head out west and take the wagon train, he also has to pick up two toss-ups that include the critical Arizona, where he's been spending a lot of time, as well as Utah. An interesting race because you have a third-party independent candidate, Evan McMullin, who's pulling above Hillary Clinton there. Can Donald Trump pull it out? Now, in addition to that, he also needs Colorado. He has to build on what Mitt Romney did and also take Iowa. That's the face of the marching band, if you remember, from third-grade geography class. In addition to that, he has to get a little something called New Hampshire, which looks like a building with a lovely parapet down below. And the biggest prize of all that John Roberts was alluding to, the one that all eyeballs are on, it's the state that gives political watchers the yips, because we all remember what happened in 2000 and how close it was. We don't want to hear the term dangling Chad ever again, but that's absolutely right. If Donald Trump is going to exceed that 270, his road has to go through the great state of Florida.
You want to do weather while you're there?
Well, we do have some light showers, tickling rather, the Northeast, very gently, I think.
All right, that's a choice plum assignment to get the electoral vote and state map, but obviously you didn't feel the same sense of historic need and importance, right?
Oh, no, it's very important.
Yes, indeed.
This is a critical point in the election and in the juncture of our country where all crossroads meet to honor you.
Exactly, there you go. All right, Kennedy, man. Just to have an election night with her part of your team on FBN. Hello, pay-per-view, but you get it basic cable. What am I saying? Thank you, Kennedy. Or in the meantime, take a look at what's been going on here in the markets, prepping for something, to what Kennedy was talking about, the switches back and forth. The S&P 500, a key market aggregate, has dropped 9 straight days. Now, we have not seen that since 1980. That was the year this fellow named Ronald Reagan beat a heavily favored Jimmy Carter. Could history be repeating itself? Are the markets telegraphing something that maybe others are missing? Well, Ed Rollins isn't missing it. He was seizing on these developments before anyone I know. The former national campaign director for Ronald Reagan and a Trump supporter joins me right now. Ed, what are we seeing here? Now, markets tend to do their thing, but they seem to be freaking out about the unknown. Not that they like or dislike Donald Trump. He's just not a known quantity to them, and they're freaking out. What do you make of it?
Well, they should be freaking out if Mrs. Clinton wins, because obviously her economic policies will be a lot worse for them than Trump's. At the end of the day, I don't think anybody understands this election. This has been a totally different election. I've been around the game for 50 years. I've been through 9, 10 presidential races, and we still are coming right down to the wire, and nobody can accurately predict where we are other than it being an extremely close race. The difference between a 1980 race is we were at a point where we ran 50 state campaigns. In 1972, my first Republican presidential campaign, we won 49 states. In 1980, we won 44 states. In 1984, we won 49 states. So we campaigned in 50 states. We don't do that anymore. And basically, since the 90s, when Dole and McCain carried 17 and 19 states, we're back to kind of picking out 8 or 10 states. So even though I think Trump can move and win, he's not going to have that kind of electoral numbers that Reagan had in 1980.
But does he have more of a path, as you could see it now, to 270 electoral votes than he did even last week at this time? And if so, why? What are you noticing going on underneath the surface?
Well, traditionally, you don't see a lot of movement in the closing weeks, but you do here because there's great uncertainty. Mrs. Clinton obviously has had a bad week, 10 days. Her weakest, most vulnerable element is that 2/3 of the country don't think she's honest, and all this FBI stuff piling on which investigation are they going to go after her on has just reinforced that. And I think it's basically given Trump, who's campaigned very hard, very aggressively in a lot of different places this week, it's given him a momentum that's closed this race up.
What difference does it make when you see the president so involved as he has been, not only campaigning everywhere and coming out in full force with Michelle Obama, even their children, with the Clinton family in Philadelphia, but appearing on all of these shows, Bill Maher last night on HBO, to pound Donald Trump with abandon?
You know, I mean, he's the best candidate out there today. I mean, Mrs. Clinton's husband used to be one of the great candidates. He's been kind of a shadow of himself today. You know, it's another person driving a message. I think particularly in the African American community, if he can turn out a better vote than she could turn out, and right now she's not turning out the same kind of numbers that he got 4 years ago or 8 years ago, it can make a difference someplace. But is the national election going to change because he's out campaigning for her? No. It just reminds people on my side that you're going to have 4 more years if she gets elected of Obama policies, which we found very unsatisfactory.
You know, I'm curious that much has been made of the fact that Hillary Clinton has enjoyed star power surrogates. Beyonce just last night, and I don't know a single voter, even Beyonce fans, would say, well, Beyonce likes Hillary, I'm voting for Hillary. But what effect does that have, especially when the New York Times on the front page bemoans the isolation of a sole campaigning Trump? I would think he could parlay that to his advantage.
Absolutely. I mean, I've never known anybody to ever go out and vote for a surrogate. The people vote for the candidates, and obviously we have two candidates that represent very well their two parties. The fact that you need Beyonce to get a crowd for a free concert doesn't show you have much firepower yourself. And I don't know that anybody goes out and says, "Oh, I got to go vote for Hillary because Beyonce was out there." Or
well, I did see you at the Beyonce concert whooping it up, and so I was a little surprised.
I like Beyonce.
Sure.
So it's just I think she's a great talent, but
right.
But I don't take political guidance from Sean Penn or Beyonce or any of these people who basically may have had great success in making movies, but not my political philosophy.
All right, thank you, my friend Ed Rollins.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Fox News contributor extraordinaire, been involved in so many. You know, he says it so often about Fox News. Fine. You know, but this is the same guy who rips Donald Trump for being thin-skinned about the media. Take a look.
If whenever things are going badly for you and you lose, you start blaming somebody else, then you don't have what it takes to be in this job.
And you've got to be able to handle criticism without taking it personally. Just brush it off.
This is a guy who tweets, they should cancel Saturday Night Live. I don't like how Alex Baldwin's imitating me. Really? I mean, that's the thing that bothers you and you want to be president of the United States? Come on, man. Come on.
It really is like an Abbott and Costello moment for me. But you said that we're a funhouse mirror and you're focused on Fox ripping you a new one, whatever. Ben Carson, former 2016 presidential candidate. He will be working the stump with Donald Trump today, I believe, in Nevada. He joins us now in Las Vegas. I don't know, Doctor. He seems to criticize a bit too much and heap criticism on those who don't like criticism. Doesn't seem that he likes criticism. But what do you think?
Well, he clearly does not like it. He's very thin-skinned himself. But that seems to be the modus operandi for many of the heads in the Democratic Party. They accuse the other side of exactly what they're doing, and they keep repeating the lie. It's called the big lie theory. It was hatched by Hitler. You keep saying the same thing over and over. Doesn't matter whether there's any veracity to it, and pretty soon people begin to believe it, particularly people who don't do their own research, who don't do their own thinking. But unfortunately for him, it's not going to work this time, because the American people are smarter than the media and the political elites think that they are. And they will analyze this for themselves, and they will recognize what is about to be lost in this country, and they're not going to fall for it.
You know, with the exception of powerful surrogates like yourself, Dr. Carson, and some others in the party who are trying to help Mr. Trump, the New York Times and others bemoan the fact that he's in isolation, that is Mr. Trump can't rely on the Beyoncés and the Hollywood elites to carry the day for him. But it would seem that is helping it, not hurting him. But I recoil at generally anyone in Hollywood doing anything politically on the right or the left. But what is your impression of that the media tends to see this through the prism of, you know, what Hollywood star or starlet is backing him?
Yeah, well, you know, they clearly have lost focus on the issues and the things that are important. And as I've said before, you know, there are three harbingers for the downfall of a great nation: taking your eye off the prize, that is, being distracted by these things like Hollywood and sports stars who all of a sudden for them have become great political intellectuals. The loss of fiscal responsibility, which we are manifesting in spades, and the acceptance of corruption at the highest levels of government. When you do that, your days are numbered. And I believe that this is our opportunity right now to stop it. And I do believe it will be stopped. You know, I've been all over the country in the last week or two talking to numerous Americans, and I see a wisdom there and a common sense that is not being manifested by a lot of our leaders, and certainly not by the media.
You're a brilliant doctor. People, you know, they know the doctor in front of your name, but I mean like scary smart neurosurgeon. And I have a feeling, let's say there's a surprise, doctor, on Tuesday, and much of the media world is stunned at the outcome. Donald Trump wins in a historic upset. Let's say that happens. Medically, people go through massive palpitations with something like that. How would you help them through it?
Well, I think the first thing is really just sit down and talk to the people and help them realize that we, the American people, are not each other's enemies. And we've allowed ourselves to be manipulated into thinking that we're enemies based on gender and race and income and age and religion and all this. This is not true at all. They need someone to sit down and explain that to them, and then explain how we're going to resolve our issues.
But is there medication, doctor? Is there medication? You could still dispense prescriptions, right? I mean, you wouldn't do them for me when you're last here, but that's fine. But you can help them.
There is a medication.
Give them Xanax or something to deal with that, or?
You know, what they need is a good dose of God and faith and the things that made America exceptional and a great nation. And remember that our rights come not from the government, but from our Creator, as our Declaration of Independence very specifically states.
Dr. Carson, thank you very, very much. All right, now to Donald Trump, the man who could be the sort of gets the stump speech, takes it to a whole nother level, tries to sprinkle in, almost with comedic timing, news events so that it doesn't sound repetitive. Hillary Clinton had better take note, shouldn't she?
I was thinking, my only quibble, Neil, is with the word repetitive. Trump repeats himself constantly, but I totally agree with you. He's a facile speaker. He's clever. He has good timing. I mean, you know, if we were to take, if it were between Trump, Bill Clinton, and Hillary Clinton, it would be Bill Clinton, Trump, Hillary Clinton in terms of speaking style.
Yeah, but I never saw a Simba moment like I did just now, and I've seen a number of times, and I think that rattles you a little bit, Adam. I think that does rattle you a little bit, but you never know.
Guilty as charged, Neil.
All right, I'm kidding you. Steve, one of the things that we talk about, you know, with Adam, you know, repetitive, each side is repetitive with their central argument, and, you know, Hillary Clinton goes on, and Steve, about what's going on with her opponent, and that he repeats himself, just like Adam said, and that he is a loose cannon, and but there's something about, and I don't know whether this is partly your inspiration, about the way Trump does it to intersperse news and what's happening. It does keep people's attention.
You know, this is the thing that's been the most remarkable thing about the whole Trump movement and Donald Trump's burst on the scene a year ago is this man, and I've been in politics for a long time, 30 years, I've very rarely seen a politician who is able to connect with the American people and sort of say things that a lot of other politicians, you know, were afraid to say, taking on political.
All right, I apologize, we lost Steve there. But, Adam, one of the things that comes up, and as we were showing some video of Chris Christie campaigning in the past for Mr. Trump, Chris Christie not doing that this weekend. He was supposed to be in New Hampshire, but maybe given the Bridgegate indictments that came down yesterday, have nothing involving the governor. Maybe the better part about it was that he would not interfere with the campaign. But much has been made of the fact that it's Donald Trump solo at a lot of these events. He has surrogates. He has Ben Carson. He has some others. But he doesn't have a deep bench of Hollywood celebrities. He doesn't have a President Obama. He doesn't have a Michelle Obama. He doesn't have a Bill Clinton. And that is seen to his
He doesn't have
detriment.
a Paul Ryan either, for example.
But here he is, even and surging in the polls without any of that stuff.
We're getting close to Election Day.
You look depressed, Adam. I've known you for years. You just look sad. What's the matter?
Yeah, Neil, you're pushing me here. I am. He connects. We know who he connects with. He connects with many of the people watching us now and connects with everybody at his rallies, but to say that he connects with the American people, well, we'll find out on Tuesday. I think it's actually.
Do you accept polls? Do you accept markets that have been trending down of late, largely on the fear that he just might win and he's an unknown, entity? I mean, I'm just throwing a lot of data at you to say,
yeah,
well, obviously this is bigger than just, angry white males.
I do, and I think it's you have to be careful with over-interpreting things like the stock market route, but no doubt that global securities markets investors who pay attention to the state of the global economy are concerned that a man with horrible trade policies who doesn't appear to have any impulse control, who just behaves in an obnoxious way constantly, could be the president of the United States.
You don't seem to like him
totally
too much.
take your data point, Neil.
Well, Steve Moore is back with us now. And Steve, one of the things we were touching on briefly was this downdraft in the S&P, 9 days down in a row. There's market lore that says if the markets are down 3 months prior to Election Day, which technically they are right now, it's not good for the incumbent party that holds the White House. And it's that uncertainty more than anything else that's just rattling the markets. Do you buy that?
Look, I think there's this perception among some investors that a Trump presidency would be bad for the stock market. And I reject that. If you look at what we're going to do if Donald Trump wins, I mean, the first thing he's going to do is cut those taxes for businesses and non-investors. That's going to help the stock market. The energy policy of promoting American energy, that's going to help, the coal industry, the oil and gas industry. So I actually think you could see, if Trump wins this election, a real bull market expansion. And I go back
Steve,
to...
you go back to Reagan, though, but you mentioned Reagan. I didn't want to jump on you there, but the markets originally were falling under Reagan and originally falling on his election because of these fears. Now, we know it took a couple of years and a recession before everything kind of kicked into gear, and there was Paul Volcker and the Federal Reserve whipping inflation. That was no small element. But do you think we're going to be, if Donald Trump gets elected next week, if that is what happens, that we're looking at that, it's a rough haul in the beginning, and the markets then sort of bounce back after that? What do you envision?
Yeah, I think maybe a little rough sledding as markets try to figure out what this new president is going to do. But as these policies come into place, and look, we think in the first 100 days we can pass that tax cut. We can start drilling. We can start overturning a lot of Obama executive orders, for example, the coal plant laws that are putting so many of our coal mines out of work. And then you start to get that momentum. You're right, Neil. It wasn't until the start of 1982, a year after Reagan's election, that we went through the biggest bull market expansion in American history. I see something like that repeating if Trump wins. And I think it's so interesting in that speech today. What is Trump's closing argument? It's the economy. It's jobs. It's tax cuts. And I think that's exactly why he's going to win. Because you look at those polls for the last 2 years, it's been jobs and the economy issues number 1 and 2.
All right, guys, thank you very, very much. I apologize for the disruption with your connection there, Steve. But Adam just pulled the plug. I don't know why, but that's the way he rolls. Well, all right. In the meantime here, I do want to go back and show you something that I think was the highlight of that Trump event. And people will minimize this sort of stuff, but it is all for the crowds. It is all for something that will be played back again and again on TV. And I call it the Trump Lion King moment. He finds a baby in the crowd. The baby rarely cries, by the way. I've not seen these at Hillary Clinton events, but that's always dicey with babies, right? Kids and animals, you avoid them because they can upstage you. But again, the link with the Lion King movie, undeniable. Take a look at this. It is almost scripted to cue. We don't have it anymore, but I thought it was brilliant. Do not lose it in that control room. I think you guys know how great that is, and a signature moment. It could be a Simba moment. But now we have a John Sununu moment. There you go. There you go. Governor, did you see this Lion King moment? And do you think that's what they keep replaying throughout the day? Good to have you.
It's unbelievable. But look, be thankful for one thing. It's only 3 more days of this.
When you were running for office and your family, your son is running for governor, of course, the family steeped in politics, do you avoid babies? Do you try to avoid that? Because that's always dicey, right?
Neil, I had 8 kids and 16 grandkids now. There's no way I can avoid babies.
No, but I mean when you pick them out in the crowd, Trump is very fond of doing that.
I'm comfortable. I'm really comfortable with him. And it's up to the mother. I mean, to tell you talk about the mechanics of what a politician should do when there's a baby in the crowd. It's up to the mother. If the mother really wants you to do that, if the mother is asking you to take a hold of the baby and you're comfortable doing it, then you go right ahead and do it. But don't force it. But Donald, I think, did it very well. It was clear that the mother was there proffering her child to be touched by the next president of the United States, and I thought he handled it amazingly well. Let's put it that way. A lot of practiced politicians would not have done it that well. Your Lion King moment description is probably very apt.
Well, I got a kick out of it. With my daughter,
Yeah.
I think I saw that movie like 500 times when she was little. But Governor, I want to ask you, you maybe got in a little hot water with a comment you made about Hillary Clinton, in which you were sort of paraphrasing or playing off of Bill Clinton saying, I did not have sex with that woman, referring that he meant his wife. Now, and that immediately got the state Democratic Party chairman in your fine state urging your son, who's running for governor, to disavow those remarks, saying that John Sunnuno's comments are sexist, chauvinistic, and disgusting, and they have no place in the Granite State. Chris Sununu needs to finally stand with New Hampshire women and disavow his father's misogynistic words. You say?
Well, the reason they're doing that is that their candidate got caught in play for pay. He got caught in delaying a contract and then refusing to rebid the contract when it was tainted, and the press reported he took $45,000. The other thing is that the governor of the state, who is running against Kelly Ayotte, not only got caught in a serious pay for play where she took $150,000 from a contractor, but she also had to return about $71,000 of illegal contributions that she took in Boston, Massachusetts. Look, the issue that I wanted to focus on at that event was the culture of corruption that the Clintons have brought to the campaign. And they have done it through the Democratic National Committee that really biased the campaign, so Bernie Sanders had no chance. They have done it with Terry McAuliffe asking Clinton to come in and raise money for his PAC, and then he giving well over $500,000 a poll. But I think right now Trump is either even or maybe a point ahead. I think the key polls are what's going on in states that more traditionally reflect polling results. States like Michigan, Colorado, Nevada. You even pointed out Pennsylvania. Those states have a much broader population to poll, and frankly, I think are a little bit more predictable in polling. In New Hampshire, we have these long presidential primaries, then we have another primary in September, and our voters are tired of answering the phone. I think in other states, they're much more accommodating to the polls.
I think you're right. But what's weird about it, though, Governor, is that, let's say in the case of Kelly Ayotte, who was kind of disavowed Donald Trump, and that was thought to get her in hot water, but it was soon after the release of that videotape. But she's doing okay, and so is Donald Trump. So
is my son, who's supporting Donald Trump.
Exactly. So I guess confusion abounds interpreting that. What do you say?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not an easy thing to interpret. And I think people that draw too many conclusions from New Hampshire polls sometimes get surprised. I think the thing the candidates have to do is go full speed ahead here. Trump is coming back, I think, on Monday to go full speed ahead. I think what you're going to see is a strong closing argument presented in New Hampshire. But people really want to hear issue positions. There's a lot of voters, I don't know what the right number is, but 10, 15% in some places that haven't made up their minds. Talk to them about Obamacare. Talk to them about an economy in the state that isn't providing jobs for the young people.
But if you were advising him, though, Governor, and I'm looking at Mr. Trump's stops in the next, let's say today, and tomorrow, this includes tomorrow, Florida and Colorado, North Carolina, Nevada. Do you think he should be beefing up his presence in Pennsylvania, that if the Democrats are so worried about holding on to that Democratic state, that maybe he should capitalize on that?
Neil, I assume that you have some viewership, and so when he lands in Florida like today, folks in all those states saw what he was doing. Significantly larger.
That I had the viewership. It kind of hurt my feelings.
Significantly larger than the 10,000 or so. I don't know what the number was in Florida, but let's call it the 10,000 people that were there. So he has a capacity of taking advantage of your insatiable thirst for the people he brings to your viewership. That wherever he goes, he's going to do well.
Real quickly, Chris Christie canceled on his own his appearance to help the ticket.
I have no idea. What I find interesting is the Democratic governor of Virginia, after the FBI announced he might be under investigation, has not been showing up with Hillary, and certainly she is hiding Huma Abedin under the rug, especially since we found 650,000 emails in Huma's computer. And I think, I'm not positive, but I think Huma's immunity might be in jeopardy with the FBI. So those are the folks that you really wanted to see with Hillary, but I guess she's hiding them as well.
On the Christie thing, if you'll indulge me, Governor, did you recommend that he not come?
I have no idea. I'm not involved with I'm not involved in any of the planning process up here.
All right, I think you're being very modest here, and I think you have more sway on these things than you're letting
I doubt it. I'm an old, cranky, grumpy governor.
Okay. Well, thank you for your references on the Lion King moment that we had today. Always a pleasure, Governor. Again, the signature event there. That's all you need to know. Donald Trump has a thing with babies. They rarely cry, and they become the stuff of cinematic political history. More after this. To Pennsylvania right now, where they will have that Katy Perry moment. Connell McShane is there in Philadelphia, where all the action will go down. Connell.
Well, you know, it's interesting, Neil. They're just starting the sound check, by the way, for this evening's Katy Perry concert as we get set for it. And Mike is hitting on a key point there with the Jay-Z Beyonce appearance and now the Katy Perry Get Out the Vote concert tonight for Hillary Clinton in Pennsylvania. She is trying to drive turnout, and she's trying to do it with the key voting constituencies that she's been targeting, young voters and women voters, and she's trying to do it in cities like this one. Think about what you know about the state of Pennsylvania. President Obama 4 years ago won fairly easily statewide, but he did it by winning just 13 of the 67 counties in the state. So how did he do it? He did it by driving the turnout in this area, Philadelphia and the surrounding suburbs. Mrs. Clinton is trying to follow a similar strategy. And we see a much different strategy from the Trump campaign. We were out in the Hershey area at a Trump rally last night, and Trump is targeting, as he has in many other states, these white working-class voters. More than half of the registered voters in the state of Pennsylvania are white and do not have a college degree. So when you look at that, we were talking about the supporters, they're enthusiastic, they say the momentum is on their side, and you compare it to the numbers. What do the numbers show? This race is getting close, Neil, in Pennsylvania. The Real Clear Politics average of the polls, and we've been watching it for months, down to about a 3-point advantage, a little bit less than that for Secretary Clinton. As you know, for months had been 7, 8, 9 points. So we'll see how it goes the last few days. Katy Perry will be here tonight trying to drive the turnout for Secretary Clinton.
All right, Connell, I always have musical accompaniment. McShane, thank you very, very much in Philadelphia. I also want to show you what's going on in some of these polls beneath the polls. A new Fox poll that shows 82% of African-American voters are supporting Hillary Clinton. But Donald Trump is making a very fervent pitch for those voters. This is from Tampa a few minutes ago.
Blacks for Trump. Thank you, fellas. That's so great. Thank you. That is great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, Trump advisor for African-American outreach, Brunel Donald Che in Chicago. Hope I pronounced that correctly. I think last time I butchered it, Brunel, but very good to have you.
It's great to be here. God bless you and God bless America. It's Brunel Donald Che.
All right. Oh, I did get it right. So, Brunel, let me ask you. The rap against Republicans is they make futile attempts to get African-American voters, and they never budge beyond 3 to 5%. Yet in some state polls, again, some, nationally it's a different story, Donald Trump is getting appreciably more than that. Nothing approaching Hillary Clinton. But when all is said and done, what do you think the African-American vote will look like?
I believe that the African-American vote will at least look, I think, 16% to 25%.
Really?
Interestingly, and yes, I do. I mean, put it like this. Donald Trump is saying, and he said this in North Carolina in his new deal to African-Americans, the contracts with African-Americans, he said, look, I'm not going to entertain you, but what I will do is put $100 billion into the inner cities in the for over an 8-year period, and then I'm also going to tack on school choice so that all Americans, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, Arab, will have a shot at the American dream of having a great education. And so that's what's important to black voters. You can't eat Jay-Z. You cannot put Trina and all these other people in your baby's bottle to feed them. But with the jobs and economics and infrastructure that Donald Trump is saying that he's going to put into the inner city, you can take that to the bank. That's what's important. $100 billion in the inner cities over 8 years in school choice.
You know, Brunel, the president says that African-Americans who vote for him are forgetting his own legacy, the president's legacy. I want you to react to this.
There was a time when systematically denying black folks the right to vote, that too was considered normal. It wasn't that long ago. So the idea that you would give your vote away, that you would sit there and not even take the 15 minutes to walk across the street and vote. Everybody sit down and be quiet for a second. You've got an older gentleman who is supporting his candidate. He's not doing nothing. You don't have to worry about him. You should. This is what I mean about folks not being focused.
All right, kind of mixing apples and oranges there. The gist of it, though, and I apologize for adding the other stuff, Brunel, was that he says go vote. That and African Americans in particular who aren't showing out in the numbers that they did for him 4 years ago and certainly 8 years prior, they're only hurting themselves. You say what?
I would say this, that African Americans need to get out of their emotions. The president is supporting Hillary Clinton, a person who has the FBI crawling all over her. She has at least 2 to 3 open criminal investigations with the FBI. Now, I wish the president would stand up for Pookie and Shantae and black people and Hispanics when the Department of Justice is breathing down our doors and when it's in our cities and when it's in our homes. So my thing is this. You've got to think about what they're going to say anything to get your vote. That's what the Democratic Party does. They come in, they shuck and jive, they dance, they put on any winning performances, and then they don't do anything in the community.
But Brunel,
Donald Trump is saying $100 billion to inner cities.
But Brunel, one of the things I'm hearing in the president's message to African Americans, not only that they could be wasting their vote by not voting, it's kind of a double negative there, but that you're really wasting it if you go for Trump. So how do you, when you go back to African Americans, explain to them, well, on this, the president's wrong? What do you say?
What I would say is this. I challenge my African Americans and Latino Americans. Go into your inner cities. If you really want to know what the president has done in the last 4 to 8 years for inner city blacks and Hispanics, go into your inner cities. Look your fellow Americans in the eyes who are hopeless and hurting and crying and feel left behind. If you believe your fellow American deserves to live like that another 4 to 8 years under Hillary Clinton, who is under federal investigation, then you vote for Hillary. But if you believe that your fellow American deserves the right to the American dream, they deserve the right to that $100 billion over the next 8 years, they deserve the right to school choice, they deserve the right to be treated better than second-class citizens in their own country, get out of your emotions. Vote for your fellow American to have jobs and better education and a bite at the American dream. Don't fall for the Emmy-winning and Oscar performances. Go out there and vote for your fellow American to live a good, great life, like the president has worked hard for illegal aliens and refugees to live. We want a president that puts Americans first, not illegal aliens, not refugees. We want a president who's going to put our military first, our economy first, our NAFTA deal, schools first. We want a president that's going to fix the infrastructure of our country. And we all know from our souls that Hillary can't do that, especially given the fact that she's got those FBI investigations all over her. She is unfit. She needs to step down. We need a president in office who's a doer and a builder, and that is Donald J. Trump.
Holy cow. One of the things that Donald Trump says, and he shortens up the argument a little bit when he reaches to African Americans and says, what the hell have you got to lose?
Yes.
Are people ever offended by that, or do they just say, hey, that makes sense?
Let me tell you something. That 25% of African Americans that are living in abject poverty aren't offended. They are going to go out. If you were signed up 8 years ago and 4 years ago to vote Democrat under Obama, take that Democratic vote that did nothing for you and put it in a bank for Donald Trump for $100 billion over 8 years. To put it into the man who took $1 million from his father and turned it into $8 billion. Put that vote into a candidate that has not been in politics 30 years making broken promises like Hillary Clinton. Put it into the political outsider, Donald J. Trump. If he doesn't do what he's supposed to do in the next 4 years, then we vote him out. But let's give him a chance. Don't fall for the Oscar-winning performances being put on. You can't eat that. But the jobs and the money and the investment in communities that Donald Trump wants to put in our communities, we can eat that and we can feed our children with it.
Holy Toledo. Brunel, remind me not to argue with you in the future.
Hey, it's the truth.
All right, Brunel,
we all know from our
you.
souls that Hillary's not going to do anything. We know it.
Thank you very, very much. We will have more.
Thank you.
This.
God bless you.
Hours there. So we mean business, and that sharp little lad is among many who'll be glued to their sets because they realize the future of the world is at stake. And other business channels, of course, are showing you infomercials, which might be fine if you're looking for a pot or a pan, but not if you're looking for guidance. All right. In the meantime, to Wisconsin and a battle royale going on there that used to be seen as a gimme, maybe for the Democrats, not so much here because they're going full throttle to try to take that state. Mike Tobin is there with the very, very latest. Mike, who's who crowd there, right?
We're expecting Governor Pence to show up here in Wisconsin just a short time, part of a flurry of national Republicans who are swooping into Wisconsin to try to sway what is shaping up as one of the tightest Senate races, and that is the Republican incumbent Ron Johnson versus a Democrat Russ Feingold. We've seen the likes of Eric Trump show up in northern Wisconsin to throw his support behind Senator Johnson. Some 45 outside groups are spending money in the Badger State right now. 16 of them are spending enough money to buy airtime. Johnson told me it's nice to have the support, but it would have been nice to have the posse swoop in a little bit sooner. That Wisconsin Republican ground machine that got Governor Scott Walker through the recall and re-election now boasts 1.6 million door knocks for Johnson. House Speaker Paul Ryan is campaigning for Johnson. To jump subjects a little bit, he told me yesterday the reports in the Hill that he was no longer interested in the Speaker's gavel are not accurate. He said, don't believe everything you read. While Governor Pence is here, anticipate that he will clear up these reports that he had some doubt about whether he supported Ryan for the Speaker's position. But the primary goal of Governor Pence while he is here is to drum up support for his own ticket and, of course, for the Johnson race. Neil?
All right, thank you, Michael. Mike Tobin, all of this will be going down momentarily. Also want to take you to West Miami, Florida. Hillary Clinton greeting crowds right there. That state essentially even, or the Democrats think with early voting that they can take it. About 4.5 million Floridians have already voted. That could be a conservative number. But she's had a lot of very powerful surrogates, particularly in the Hollywood and the music industry community. Beyonce just last night. But that's not to say that Donald Trump has no representation in that community. Far from it. I want you to meet a pretty big player of his own after this.
Fox News alert from America's election headquarters as Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are set to hold rallies soon in two key battleground states as they hit the home stretch of this campaign. Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a great weekend. I'm Jenna Lee, and this is a special Saturday edition of Happening Now.
Thanks for spending part of your day with us. I'm John Scott. Just 3 days until America decides who our next president will be. And in a race this close, the candidates are leaving nothing to chance. Hillary Clinton starting her day in Pembroke Pines, Florida, before going to Pennsylvania. Those two states alone combine for a whopping 49 electoral votes. Donald Trump will be holding a rally in Wilmington, North Carolina. Then he heads west to Nevada and Colorado. But it's North Carolina that's emerging as a key prize for both campaigns as they try to win the White House. We have live Fox team coverage with Mike Emanuel on the Clinton campaign, but we begin with senior national correspondent John Roberts in Tampa, Florida.
John, good afternoon to you. Certainly North Carolina is a very important battleground state, but Florida is key for Donald Trump. If he does not win its 29 electoral votes, it is going to be a very early evening for him. Started off his day here with a rally just outside of Tampa at the fairgrounds. So far, at this point, the Real Clear Politics average of polls shows Hillary Clinton with a slight lead of about 1 percentage point. But to be fair, the polls have kind of been all over the place in the last week or so. Donald Trump opened up the rally today criticizing Jay-Z for repeatedly using the N-word and dropping the F-bomb at a Hillary Clinton rally in Cleveland last night. Donald Trump insisting that he has never used such language in his life. He then launched into an assault on Obamacare, a bread and butter issue that he believes could really motivate voters out to the polls on Tuesday. Listen.
Premiums are surging because of Obamacare. Companies are leaving. Insurers are fleeing. Doctors are quitting. And deductibles are going through the roof, some as high as $15,000, some higher than that. Yet Hillary Clinton wants to double down on Obamacare, making it even more expensive.
And remember, Donald Trump has pledged that on the first day in office, should he be elected president, he will begin the process to repeal and replace Obamacare, saying that he would even convene a special session of Congress to get that process underway. He also kept up the drumbeat on the Hillary Clinton email scandal this morning, almost taking glee in the idea that hundreds of thousands of emails, many of them never seen before, were found on Anthony Weiner's computer.
Can you imagine? Anthony Weiner has probably every classified email ever sent. And knowing this guy, he probably studied every single one in between using his machine for other purposes.
Early voting has been underway here in the state of Florida for a couple of weeks now. In many counties, it ends today. The rest of the counties will close tomorrow. So far, John, when you look at the overall tallies of the mail-in vote, which is the so-called absentee vote, and the early voting results, Democratic returns now lead Republican returns by about 7,000. The Republicans had been leading throughout most of the last couple of weeks, but even so, Republicans say they are way ahead of where they were in 2012. John?
John Roberts joining us from Tampa. Thank you, John.
In the meantime, Hillary Clinton starting her day in the biggest swing state of them all as you look at electoral votes, Florida. That's where we find our senior political correspondent, Mike Emanuel, who's reporting live from Pembroke Pines. Mike?
Well, hi, Jenna. Yeah, the local teachers union here in Broward County, Florida, is cooking out hot dogs for those of you wondering at home, and you're lucky it's not smell-o-vision because it smells great. Ahead of a huge Hillary Clinton rally here on the final weekend of this 2016 campaign, Clinton had some major star power campaigning on her behalf last night in Cleveland. Beyonce dazzled a crowd in Cleveland trying to stimulate the African-American vote. It was a largely African-American and young audience. Clinton is taking advantage using VIP entertainers that Republicans don't typically have backing them. Beyonce's husband, Jay-Z, made this appeal saying he wants his daughter to grow up without limitations, and then he attacked Donald Trump.
His conversation is divisive, and that's not an evolved soul to me, so he cannot be my president. He cannot be our president. Once you divide us, you weaken us. We are stronger together. And without further ado, I would like to introduce to you the next president of the United States, Ms. Hillary Clinton.
As for the Democratic nominee, Hillary Clinton, she seems to be feeling it with larger crowds and a tremendous buzz ahead of Election Day.
When I see them here, this passion and energy and intensity, I don't even know where to begin, because this is what America is, my friends. I got the eye of the tiger.
That clip is from a new ad the Clinton campaign is out with from Katy Perry's song Roar that will run in battleground states between now and Election Day. As for Katy Perry, she will be campaigning on Hillary Clinton's behalf tonight in Philadelphia. We've got a little shower underway here in South Florida. Back to you, Jenna.
You got a lot going on there, Mike. Indeed. Thank you very much.
And it looks like some good barbecue going on.
It certainly does.
As both campaigns go at each other tooth and nail, we're getting a brand new look at the state of the race. And according to our Fox News poll, it could not be closer. It shows Hillary Clinton with a 1-point edge, 46 to 45%, well within the margin of error. An ABC Washington Post tracking poll shows Secretary Clinton with a bigger lead. She's ahead by 4 points at 47-43. Let's take a look at Larry Sabato's crystal ball. It finds Secretary Clinton has safely locked up 183 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 116. 89 electoral votes are likely Democratic, 57 are likely Republican, 21 electoral votes are pointing the Democrats' way, and 41 toward the GOP. Let's get into it with Kyle Kondik, political analyst at the University of Virginia's Center for Politics, author of the book Bellwether, Why Ohio Picks the President. Kyle, good to have you on today. She's up 1 point in our Fox News poll. Last week, she was up 5 points. Is that her momentum sliding, or is it Donald Trump's momentum going north?
I think throughout this campaign, we've seen that Clinton is sort of consistently led, although at certain times where bad news has broken for her campaign, and I certainly think the Jim Comey announcement from 8 days ago qualifies as bad news, we've seen her numbers sort of dip and Trump maybe improve a little bit. So I think it's been kind of a lousy week at the polls for Clinton, but I do still think that the preponderance of evidence suggests that she's leading and that she's the favorite going into Tuesday.
Okay, but again, a 1-point national lead doesn't mean anything if you don't win the Electoral College on a state-by-state basis. You have her at 183 Electoral College votes safely locked up. Where does that stand in comparison with past weeks?
I think we've had Clinton over 300 electoral votes in our maps for a lot of this cycle. We did downgrade her recently. We have her at 293 in our current map with just a handful of a few toss-ups, most notably Florida. I think that Clinton is probably just a slight favorite in Florida. We'll be putting out our final predictions on Monday. But there are a lot of close states. And, of course, I think Donald Trump is hopeful that he can maybe steal one of the big Midwestern battlegrounds that typically votes Democratic from Clinton. I think he's already already favored in Iowa and Ohio, and then you look at maybe a Michigan or a Wisconsin or maybe even Minnesota as a place where I think he's hoping to spring an upset. But all the evidence, I think, suggests that Clinton is still leading in those places. Maybe by not as much as Obama won them in 2012, but I don't think they're tied either.
I want to dig a little deeper into our Fox News polls, especially when it comes to two key gauges of how fervent voters are about their particular candidates. When asked about the level of support, Clinton supporters strongly support their candidate. 65% of them say they strongly support her. Trump is +6 in that category with 71%. And then when you move on to the category of how interested are you in the 2016 presidential election, Clinton supporters, 54% of them say they are extremely interested. 63% of Trump supporters say they're extremely interested. So, I mean, it's a tough thing to measure, but when you've got a race that Fox polls put at 1% nationally, doesn't this level of enthusiasm potentially make a huge difference?
You know, it could, although, you know, the good thing for Clinton is that an unenthusiastic vote counts as much as an enthusiastic one.
Sure.
And I think we saw it.
If it's snowing or raining or it's windy or something outside, the less enthusiastic voter is less likely to go out.
Yeah, I think the benefit for Clinton here is that I think she probably is going to have a stronger ground organization. But yeah, I think that the Trump folks may be more fired up at this point. I think that maybe Democratic enthusiasm went down a little bit after the Comey letter. I think that's probably why you're seeing a race that seems closer now than maybe it did a week or two ago. And again, if Trump were to be able to win, it would probably be that he is able to bring out some irregular voters who maybe didn't show up for Mitt Romney but would show up for him.
Your Crystal Ball newsletter says, part of it reads, this election may truly be something of a jump ball.
So again, I think Clinton is still favored here, but again, probably a little bit less confident about that than maybe we were 1 or 2 weeks ago. And I think the Comey letter is a great explanation for why that is.
Well, he's taller, so if it is a jump ball, I don't know. It could go his way. Kyle Kondik from the University of Virginia Center for Politics. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call now.
Well, several lawsuits working their way through the courts to prevent election fraud and voter suppression. In Ohio, a federal judge issued a temporary restraining order barring voter intimidation activities. In Arizona, a new law making it a crime for political operatives to collect and deliver mail-in ballots filled out by voters was challenged, and we just found out a few moments ago that it is being upheld, so no one can deliver a ballot for you there in most circumstances. And in North Carolina, a judge ordered that any voters who had their names removed from the rolls within the last 90 days were restored. Richard St. Paul is a criminal defense attorney and a Republican election observer. We'll talk about that. Carrie A. Szilagyi is a former Bronx assistant district attorney, criminal defense attorney, and Democratic member of the Nassau County Legislature. It's great to have you both. It's really interesting to kind of take a look at, what is the appropriate legal behavior around Election Day. And Richard, I'm curious, you're going to be going down to Philadelphia. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing and why.
Sure. So part of the operation will include a whole roving attorneys who will be called to trouble location. And what's a trouble polling location? That's a location where somebody's electioneering, where they're campaigning within 100 feet of the ballot. The polling site. Sure. That's also people who they may say, I wasn't allowed to vote. Okay, so a lot of people think that the operation for Democrats and Republicans is to stop people from voting. No, you want to encourage voting. So part of our operation is going to make sure that people under HAVA, Help America Vote Act, signed by President Bush, that everyone is allowed to vote. So no, you cannot be turned away in this election. You can be issued a provisional ballot, but everybody has the opportunity to cast the ballot.
Carrie, I'm going to get your thoughts in a second, but Richard, I'm just curious, going back on your previous experience, what do you notice when you're out at different sites? What happens?
Here's what I most notice. Okay, people who are campaigning within 100, so they'll hold up signs,
right,
vote, advocate for positions within 100 feet of the polling place, or sometimes they'll go in with, vote for Trump or vote for Clinton, T-shirts, buttons. That stuff is not allowed. That's passive electioneering.
Okay, wait a minute, Carrie. So if someone wants to wear their Make America Great hat or their Hillary Clinton shirt, they should rethink their fashion on voting day. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, voters have certain rights, and they have the right not to be intimidated or receive unwanted messages within 100 feet of a polling site. So if they're wearing a Trump shirt or a Hillary Clinton shirt, they must reverse that shirt because they're about to enter a polling site where they cannot provide any political messages.
Yeah, I think a lot of people might be surprised about that because if there's one thing we've seen over this election period that both sides we can agree upon is a lot of swag.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Right? You got a lot of T-shirts and baseball hats, but that's a no-go when you go go to
but
vote.
the Make America Great Again doesn't really advocate for a particular
Because
candidate.
it doesn't have Trump's name?
Doesn't have Trump's name.
Okay, but to be most cautious, Carrier, you might just want to dress in black.
Yeah.
Something neutral.
That's correct. And at polling sites, you'll have representatives from the local Board of Elections and other independent, nonpartisan agencies that might advise people to, not carry such political messages. But the important message is that if you see something, say something. This has been one of the most emotional, intense elections we've seen in years. And let's make sure that, the rhetoric doesn't encourage people to take the law into their own hands. And let's just have a fair and, effective election.
Everyone, we certainly want that. We don't want to be reporting on, a bunch of issues at polling sites. But I am curious how you balance, Richard, voter suppression versus voter fraud, and how there's a line between the two of those, and we do need to make sure that that line stays there. How do you do that?
So voter fraud, a lot of people think that people are going into an election polling place and voting twice. Very rarely happens. Look, when you're in a polling place, you have poll workers, poll watchers, surveillance video typically outside if it's in some type of public place. In New York City, you have a police officer at every polling location. There's a lot of activity in a polling place. For somebody to walk in a polling place to commit fraud is very unlikely. Now, in terms of voter intimidation, that happens outside.
Right.
Don't vote for Hillary Clinton. Don't vote for Donald Trump. They're calling them names. That type of stuff happens. Again, it should be 100 feet from the polling place. But, lines of people on both back and forth, pro-Hillary, pro-Trump, outside the polling place.
Carrie, we've seen lines to vote that are longer than 100 feet. So there's a chance that you could be in line and you could have somebody nearby, but you're 100 feet away from the entrance. What do you think is something that every voter should know, besides the fashion tips, which we appreciate, when they go in to vote? What are part of our rights when it comes to voting?
It's a great question. Voters should know that they are entitled to a